So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the questions and answers segment of the CREST network. We do this every month on the third Tuesday of the month because both Bill and I, are overwhelmed usually during the month with either phone calls or emails or texts of some of the craziest questions and some that are really good. And so we've chosen to take a group of, we've got an echo in here. Maybe that is Rachel. So we're going to cover 8 or 10 of those this morning. So let's see if I can jump to the first one. All right. So for those of you that have attended my class, those of you that are going to be attending next week's class, one of the things that I talk about a lot, and in my regular weekly coaching with the different marketers, is the discussion about a summary move. You can think of a summary move in the old days, in the old version. A summary move was back then referred to as an elevator pitch or an elevator sales gimmick. There's lots of different ways to present it, but we've gone away from the concept of an elevator pitch because an elevator pitch is typically thought of as the salesperson spewing out a bunch of details, information, specs about their product or their service. And it might go something like, hi, I'm Dick Wagner with the CREST Network, and we have this latest widget that is the most awesome tool ever, and it'll save you time and it'll save you money, and it's really inexpensive, and and it also combs your hair at the same time that it trims your fingernails, and it is just a really, really cool product, and I'd like to show that to you. And oh, by the way, there are even more specifications about this that you really need to know. That's the traditional elevator pitch that was and often, sadly, still given today. We have refined that, and specifically for the restoration industry in particular, we've defined and refined that so that we're now calling it a summary move. And the summary move, I'd like you to think of as a chess move. As a chess player, one of the very first moves you make is your summary move. And often when you make your first move in a chess game, if you move and start out with the wrong 1 or 2 or 3 moves, you doom yourself to being checkmated within the game. So the summary move is really crucial. It's really critical to start the game or start the process or start the relationship or the interaction with your client in the very best way that you can. And so a summary move might sound something like this. And listen carefully to the key words that we've put into this summary move. We want our marketers to memorize this summary move, just like an actor or an actress memorizes their scripts and their lines so that when they're on the screen, they're believable, they're credible, they sound natural. The same situation with a summary move. We want you to memorize it. There are only 3 sentences. The first sentence is the no-brainer. Hi, my name is Dick Wagner with the CREST Network. We all know that everybody can remember their name and the company they work for. That's easy. The other two lines or sentences that we want you to memorize are as follows. And this one is specifically for calling on insurance agents. We help your policyholders recover quickly with the least amount of cost and inconvenience when they experience a property disaster. In addition, our goal is to make you, the agent, look good and help with client retention. That's what I call a powerful summary move. It literally tells the agent about their own interests. You use the word policyholder, that's what an insurance agent uses. You talk about the least amount of cost and inconvenience. The insurance agent knows that the lower the costs, the better position his loss ratios are in, and that's how he gets paid. And then you, as the contractor, should never need to be the hero. You don't need that pat on the back. The person that needs to be elevated, put on a pedestal, made to be the hero is the insurance agent. They're the ones that referred this client to you. And so they did a brilliant thing by referring a good company. The agent should be put on the pedestal. The agent should be made to be the hero. And of course, you help with client retention. Another really important factor that insurance agents care about. So I'm going to say it through one more time to put it all together. Hi, my name is Dick Wagner with the CREST Network. We help your policyholders recover quickly with the least amount of cost and inconvenience when they experience a property disaster. In addition, our goal is to make you, the agent, look like a hero and help you with client retention. That is a powerful summary move that is currently being used by many, many, many of the marketers that I coach. And most every one of them has told me, oh my God, Dick, I just can't believe it. An agent that wouldn't give me the time of day is now sending me jobs, because when I told him this summary move, they brought me back into their office and wanted to know more. I'm Dick Wagner. Yep. Billy, you're up next.
Thank you, Dick. Great information. Good morning, everyone. I heard you guys went to a convention last week. For me, are those events worth going to? Actually got this over the weekend from two of our CREST members, because one of them, I actually had to reschedule our weekly call because of Dick and my activities. Yes, we were out at the Experience out in Charleston last week. It's a twice a year event that's put on by a group of individuals who are part of the restoration industry. And it is by far the largest gathering of both restorers and vendors in one location. Now, we didn't have any events last year, so this was the first event in a year and a half. Their bigger event is always in September, just after Labor Day, out in Las Vegas. That event over the years has drawn as many as 4,000 different people. So that's a very large event. The one in Charleston was a lot more reasonably sized, given the fact that we're just coming out of the pandemic. And it's usually not a very highly attended event to begin with, but there were a really, really good cross section of people from all over the country, and some very interesting vendors and opportunities for restorers. Here's my mindset on whether or not you should spend some time and money away from your business at these events. If you're the kind of guy who's where you want to be and you're kind of just on cruise control, these events really won't help you out too much. But if you're a company that's looking at improving yourself and getting larger, and maybe taking steps to go into different parts of your business. Possibly you're doing mitigation. You might think about wanting to do reconstruction, or you might want to talk about maybe doing contents. Going to these events serves two really good purposes. Number one, when you see the vendors and when you hear the different presentations, you're able to get a really nice, clear picture of what's happening today in the industry. You may have explored that opportunity 5 or 10 years ago in your business, and now you're coming back around to it. Well, as you know, with all walks of life, so much has changed in our industry in the last 5 to 10 years. Coming to one of these events is a great way to see what the latest and greatest is, from the technology to the tools and equipment to the personnel decisions you have to make, all the different things. And there are classes basically on everything with your business. So it is very helpful. Secondly, and possibly more important, is your ability to do your networking and interacting with other restorers is invaluable. You really can't put a price on the ability for you to sit down and break bread with some restorers from other parts of the country. They're certainly not your competitors. And the one thing that we all know about this industry is everybody likes to help each other out. We all feel like we're on the same team. And it's really important to be able to do that for yourselves before you commit to a course of action, because you could get a really good feel for people who have tried it before and have been successful, and those who have been not as successful and maybe have abandoned that idea that you have. In either event, you're getting a lot of incredibly valuable data information for you to assess, and you're getting it just for the cost of that one admission ticket. Dick and I have been going, this was probably my 12th year going to the spring event. I don't think I've ever missed a spring or a fall event other than the pandemic since I've been in the industry. And yes, we're there to help promote the CREST network, and we're there to help see what else is out there, but we're also there to talk with other people in the industry, restorers, coaches, workers. And it's great to get the latest and greatest for us as well, so we can bring that home to you guys. So I would venture to say, if you're comfortable where you're at, it's a waste of money. It probably would just be, kind of a vacation trip. And if you want to do that in September in Vegas, that's great. But if you're really anxious about building your business, and if you think you've got an opportunity to do something different, bigger, or better, by all means, this should be the thing that you should be doing. You should be coming out in September to Vegas. If you have any questions about where the event is or any information about it, get in touch with Dick or myself and we'll forward you all the information. It's definitely something that we would highly recommend. There are other events throughout the year, similar type events that other people put on, that you could consider as well. There's an event that the RIA is putting on. And for those of you who don't know, the RIA is a pretty big and powerful trade association within our industry. They're putting on an event, I believe it's the end of June, down in Florida, down in Orlando. So that's an opportunity as well. There's also lots of regional events. There's also lots of classrooms. Classrooms are opening back up. So there's lots of those. As a matter of fact, next week, Dick and I are putting on a class for our restoration marketing specialist certification here in Atlanta. And that class is already sold out, but there are more opportunities opening up over the next few months that Dick and I will be presenting this. So any of these where you have a chance to sit with other restorers and have a meal with them and break bread and share war stories, those are not bragging opportunities, guys. Those are opportunities to learn, to get information, and to really give yourself a good perspective for building your business. So I encourage all of you who want that to utilize that as much as possible. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. I've been asked this by marketers many, many times over the years, and I thought it was worth resurrecting this question, even though I haven't been asked it in the last couple of weeks. But the question is, what is the single biggest obstacle that my marketers have to overcome? And I do get asked this when I'm doing interviews to interview potential marketers for some of my clients. And the short answer of what the biggest obstacle is is two words, and it's called status quo. Status quo is whatever is existing at that moment with that client. It's kind of like what's currently happening or currently not happening. It's the way things are right now. So to clarify that a little better, when you call on an insurance agent and they are not referring anybody for some of their property losses, and to, you're nobody's getting referred for a policyholder, or no policyholders getting referred to a contractor, rather. The agent is currently engaged in what's called status quo, and that is he's doing nothing. He's not referring anybody. That is the status quo, and that will be the single biggest hurdle that marketers have to overcome, because it's easy to just continue doing whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't take any new effort. It doesn't take any new thought. And so the challenge is in overcoming their status quo is, how do you get them to buy in to what it is you're offering? The fact is that status quo is, it arises because people hate loss. Everybody is loss averse. Oddly enough, people view the pain of a loss as more intense than the joy of the gain that they might have. And especially even when the intense loss versus gain are more or less equal, people will always lean toward the loss side because they are loss averse. They don't want to risk the possibility of loss. So you have to make it really short and really sweet in your discussion with your prospect about why they might want to change. If you're calling on insurance agents, what you want them to do is to refer you or refer their policyholders to you on a loss. What you're doing with a plumber is the very same thing. You want that plumber to recommend you to their plumbing customer when they get there and find a water loss. And so the challenge is that getting them out of status quo means that they've got to exert some effort. They've got to think about it. They've got to get it into their head that, oh yeah, I've got to refer this company to take care of that. It's so much easier to say, oh yeah, call the 1-800 number. It's so easy for the plumber to say, you know what? There's lots of companies out there that can come in and help you. It takes effort. It takes memory. It pushes on their bandwidth of capability to remember the steps in the process to refer you as a contractor on a job. So you better make the story about them referring you fun, easy, simple, with very little complicated processes or steps or procedures in order to help them get out of the status quo. Remember that relationships that stall rarely recover. And so if you have a relationship with a plumber or an insurance agent or a commercial property owner, you better maintain it. Going more than about 30 to 45 days means there's the great potential for that relationship to stall. And once it stalls, that client is back to status quo because you have not been engaging them. So you better have a touch. You better do text. You better do email. You better do video messaging. You better send handwritten notes. You better do video chats where you can. All of that helps bring your prospect out of status quo. Billy?
Thank you, Dick. Isn't a commercial water loss just like a very large home loss? Get this a lot because we're talking about scale. So if we have a 2,000 square foot home or we have a 10,000 square foot floor of a hotel, isn't it just a matter of scale? And the answer is absolutely not. I think most of us already know this to some extent, but the reality is that the two projects have to be tackled very, very differently from the very start. In the first hours on a commercial project, you could possibly do irreparable damage to your project to the point where you're going to keep yourself from being able to make money. It's really hard to say that on a residential loss. Normally, the residential loss, we want to go in, we want to make sure that we've created a sense of calm for our client. We want them to understand that we're professionals and we're going to take care of their home. It's a very emotional process because the homeowner has a very personal tie to not only the home, but the belongings. So we have to navigate a very personal field. That said, the materials that we encounter are fairly similar and consistent from job to job. What we see in terms of damage is fairly consistent. We see, different sizes, obviously, from job to job, but the extent of damage is something that we've seen over and over again. And because we do the work all the time, most of us being residential restorers, it's something that's in our wheelhouse. So we go in, we take care of getting all the paperwork signed, we do our scope and our sketch, and then we just go do the work. We assume that when it comes time to collecting the money, that the homeowner is going to honor the contract and that in working with their insurance company, we're going to come to some fair and equitable amount. Well, on a commercial loss, if we follow those steps, we're really burying ourselves. When we talk about commercial losses, there's so many things that we have to consider that are far more important than our mitigation efforts. For instance, in a hotel, you've got to consider what's happening to those rooms that have been affected. Were they currently being used by hotel guests? If they were, we've got to allow for the hotel to make efforts to relocate those guests. We've got to allow for the hotel to figure out their daily work processes while we are trying to figure out the extent of the loss. What I'm basically saying is no matter what loss we have on a commercial side, there are things called business interruption coverages that far exceed our importance and our ability on the mitigation side. If you're doing work in a manufacturing plant, for instance, and let's say you're going to end up doing $200,000 of work, and you might take a week and you just run in there and say, all right, close this whole thing down. We need this whole space to ourselves. And this is what we're going to do. It's going to take a week and our bill's going to be 200 grand. Well, that's all well and good. But if you didn't stop to consider what the cost of shutting everything down was going to be, then you probably cost yourself a long-term relationship and you could have cost yourself getting paid because that insurance company has to be part of the process and the owner or the property manager has to be part of the process as well. It's not enough to just say, I'm in charge, I'm going to take care of you. That's the residential side. That's okay. 90% of the time we don't get burned. That's what we want to do. And that's what others want us to do. On the commercial side, we have to slow down. That example I just gave you about the $200,000 for 1 week of work in a manufacturing facility, if you shut them down, you could have probably cost that company millions of dollars in lost revenue from their manufacturing efforts. So we have to really go a long way towards helping out all the other parties come to a solution that works for everyone, not just for you. So see the difference? We're not rushing in and just starting our work. We're going in, and as soon as we assess the situation, we're slowing down. It's a very hard thing. It fights every instinct that we have as restorers. We see water, we want to get in there right away. We want to take care of it. We see damage, we want to fix it. That's our nature. We want to be helpers, we want to be doers. While on commercial, we can't. We have to be part of the process. And that process includes 4 or 5 different parties, most of whom I've already named. Remember, the insurance company is probably going to be bringing in an expert. Now, this expert is not the way it is on the residential side, where a lot of these guys are hired after the work is all done, and they're hired to quote unquote review and audit your invoice. And we all know that it's code for chop it down. While the experts that are hired by the insurance companies are truly building experts that are there to help come to a good resolution for the steps to be taken going forward, steps that will protect the insurance company's interest, steps that will protect the property owner or manager's interest, the building tenant, the business's interest, and the restorer's interest. So that $200,000 one-week job might turn into a $500,000 6-week job, but you just have to take things a lot slower and you have to work around certain other things going on the project. Now, none of us would object to that if we were told this is what we all agree to. Here's what your bill's going to be, and it's just going to take you longer. None of us are going to object to that because our goal is to do the work knowing we're going to get paid for it. Why not slow down? Why not allow yourself to be part of that process? So let's keep that in mind, guys. It's not about a show of force, so to speak. It's not about spiking the job, so to speak. And it's never about our ego. If you're doing commercial work because of your ego, I'm sorry to have to be the one to tell you this, but that ego is probably going to cost you your company at some point. And I don't mean to be too alarmist, but that's the absolute truth. Commercial work, the last thing that we should be doing is using our ego to dictate how and why we do that work. It should be a simple business decision, understanding that it is not just like a very large home loss. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. Let me move this to the next slide. There we go. I'm also asked this question. I've been asked this question for years. The answer hasn't changed very much over the years. Now, if you want to go back 20 years, yeah, sure, it has changed. But the short answer here is your marketer, that full-time Monday through Friday, 40-hour work week marketer should be able to generate $1 million a year in business. And before you panic and before you fall off your chair, I have to tell you that I have worked with marketers that one in Tampa, Florida, consistently does $2 million a year. Consistently brings in 2.1, 2.2, $2.4 million a year in restoration revenue for her company. I don't at the present time, but in years past, I have worked with a marketer up in the Washington, D.C. area, of Baltimore more specifically. She consistently, for 5 or 6 years, brought in excess of $4 million a year in revenue. So when I say today that the typical Monday through Friday marketer calling on insurance agents and plumbers and maybe a few carpet cleaners, maybe a few industrial hygienists, fire sprinkler companies, there is no reason why you cannot be generating $1 million a year in business. And I'll take it one step further. I regularly talk with marketers who say, geez, I I have so much to do administratively that I'm only out on the road 4 days a week. Okay, well, 4 days a week probably isn't going to cut it to crack $1 million. But I did a little bit of math. I'm hoping that everybody can see this slide here that I put on the screen. But if you want to do the math and know what you should be worth to your company, or what every hour of your workday is worth, this is the easy calculation. If you want to hit $1 million a year, and you should be, or you should be on track for that, we all know that there are roughly 2,000 work hours in a year. And it's real easy to calculate that. Roughly 50 weeks in a year, because we assume you're on vacation for a couple of weeks. At 40 hours a week, that's 2,000 hours. If you divide the 2,000 hours into $1 million, that means that every hour of your workday, you should be generating work equivalent to upwards of $500 an hour. I don't know how to simplify it any more than that, but I want to address a couple things related to it. If you're a marketer and you're sitting there doing administrative type things that a $12 to $15 an hour person could be doing in your place, and they're not good at generating $500 an hour, but you are, for you to spend an hour doing administrative work that somebody else could be doing for $15 an hour, you're seriously hurting your opportunities, and you're basically wasting $500 an hour. If you're spending an entire day in the office typing into the CRM and sending out email blasts and every other kind of thing that you are participating in within the office administratively, that ought to be done by somebody at $15 an hour, and you need to be out doing what you do best, generating $500 an hour. So I just wanted to share that with you so you could see the simple math. Marketers should, when they're if they look at an annualized effort after they've been with the company and they've got into the routine, you should be on target to generate $1 million a year. Thanks, Billy.
Thank you, Dick. And I can just say anecdotally that I know of at least 4 or 5 CREST members who have marketers achieving those goals right now. I keep getting calls from TPAs begging me to join, saying they need companies in my area. What should I do? Maybe one of you watching today has asked me this question recently. This has happened a lot in the last 3 to 6 months. There are TPAs who are cold calling restoration companies looking to get them to sign up to that program. Let me give you the perspective of what the TPA's purpose is before I tell you whether or not it works for you. Dick Wagner has a very strong impression and opinion as to whether it works for you or not, but I will be a little less direct on my negativity, and I'll give you for instance, why it could work for you. But let me explain first why the TPAs are doing this. Well, within the industry, the TPA business has reached what they call critical mass. It's reached a tipping point. Right now, it represents almost 50% of all the work that's done in the industry. The TPAs have done a really good job corralling this business to themselves. And obviously, there's a lot of consolidation going on within our industry. So they're all, number one, looking to build, number two, worried about being taken over, bought out, or losing their footprint. So they need to gain more business from the all states and the state farms where there is more consolidation going on. In order to do so, they have to give the impression of a saturated marketplace in terms of restorers, that no matter where that loss is, they've got somebody within a half hour. So their maps have to have hundreds, if not thousands, of dots on them at all times. The larger cities need to have multiple dots. So understand that if you're getting a call from these TPAs and they're sitting there and they're telling you, oh, we desperately need people in your area, you're in a good position, but understand that that might just be that they need a dot on their map, not necessarily one that's going to translate to a lot of work for you. So what do we do if you actually hear this and you're interested? Well, number one, don't ever go into a relationship with a TPA without fully understanding what you're getting into. We've talked about this at length, guys, and without bashing them, I'm just going to tell you that it is a very expensive proposition in the long run to be part of a TPA program. Most TPAs take a substantial fee off the top, anywhere from 8% up to 12, 15% of your overall invoice. That fee is of an amount lower than you would normally be able to write. Let me explain that. If your normal restoration invoice is $4,000, well, I can basically tell you that your normal restoration invoice under a program is going to be closer to 33 or 3,400. There's about a 20% reduction in what you're even allowed to write for. Most TPA programs don't allow you to write for things like an emergency response call. They don't allow you to write for any kind of supervision or administrative hours. Yes, I know a lot of companies fight that, but you could still get them. They don't allow for more than 3 days of drying unless you're going to be able to prove it early on. They don't allow for any kind of crazy, in their words, alternate means of drying, like using drying chambers or like using floor mats or wall mat systems, injector dries, things like that. You need special permission to use those. That's part of their gimmick. Part of what they sell to the insurance company is we're going to make sure that all the losses look the same for you, so you've got consistency and you can predict what that cost is going to be. Well, that's the game they play, but they're the ones forcing it on us. If you sign that agreement to become part of the TPA network, in that agreement is spelled out what you can and can't invoice for, what you can and can't do. Okay, so now when your invoice gets lowered and then they're taking off that piece on top, you're upwards of a 25 to 30% reduction in your revenue. Is it worth it? Only you can make that decision. If you're a company that is having a very, very difficult time marketing, my first suggestion would be contact Zach Wagner, join the CREST network, and see what we can do to help you with your marketing. If you really feel like nothing is working and this is the only way you can bring in business, then you better know one other thing before you sign that contract. You better get some demographic information from them that is historical and tells you what their market share is in your own market. You know, in the larger cities like New York or Chicago or Atlanta, I'm sure that some of these programs can throw hundreds of losses out a month. That's reasonable. When you've got 10 million people in a territory, there are thousands and thousands of water losses every month. So it's conceivable that they're able to say, hey, we can guarantee you 5 or 10 losses a month. All right, then you have to make a business decision. That's your business decision to make, but you better make sure that you're aware of that. The other thing I left out that a lot of TPAs force you to do is to use a specific type of software as your tracking software, as your reporting software, and they also require you to report at regular intervals. Some I've heard make you report back on the jobs you're working for them every 12 hours. The people I know who are active in these programs have told me that they need to hire at least one, if not two staff people for these programs just to keep up with the program requirements. Because, guys, if you do work for them and you don't follow their reporting guidelines, there's penalties which can involve not getting paid the full amount or not getting paid at all. So understand that. This is a very, very one-way street. The only thing that goes in the other direction is if you are desperate for work and can't find work, then it's a way for them to throw you work. Now, that's for you on the restoration side. If you happen to have a contents company, or you do environmental work, or you do reconstruction, the program is less inhibiting for you and less controlling because, number one, you probably have fewer competitors in your market. And number two, those are jobs that many times we don't do the work until there's agreed upon scope and pricing. So you're not handicapping yourself as much, and you can get that agreed upon scope and pricing to the point where you can know what you're going to make beforehand and you're not as handcuffed. But by and large, I will follow Dick's advice. Dick always says, it's the gateway drug to getting totally hooked on it. And it is, by definition. They want you to get hooked because they want more of the business to have to flow through the programs. That said, you have to do what's best for your company. And we obviously at the CREST Network would love for you to develop a marketing program independent of any one referral source, something that's healthy, diverse, and has a broad spectrum for you. So we would obviously encourage you to stay away from the programs. But if it's something that you absolutely believe in, please give us a call. We will give you an unbiased opinion, one that works just for you. Thank you, guys.
Bill, I can't help but add, just because this is one of my big hot buttons. You mentioned having to hire additional people, i.e., maybe administrative people to support the TPAs. And I have a very, very good friend who in Ohio who was up to their eyeballs in TPA work on just about every possible program. And they had to have two full-time $50,000 a year payrolled people just to monitor, maintain, deal with the admin, deal with the relationship, keep things smooth things out when things got difficult. And they finally fired both of those people and went cold turkey, my favorite expression on the TPA drug. And they went cold turkey and went off of all of those TPAs that were just crushing them under their TPA thumb. So, I mean, I've seen that firsthand. All right, let's see if we can move on here. Why do you say that company literature is a waste of money? I was on a team call yesterday morning where there was a discussion about company literature, and I was grateful that that person said all of that company literature that we previously or you previously generated had printed, hired graphics artists to put together and then printed on 4-color trifold glossy brochures and so forth. We're not going to do that anymore. And I was very pleased to hear that, because the problem, the single number one biggest problem with company brochures and literature and flyers is that it all eventually ends up in the garbage. Yes, it ends up in the garbage. The fact is that brochures and or printed sales collateral, they've had their day. And by the way, that day has passed. Yet so many companies and so many marketers are hanging on to that perceived need to print brochures and then carry brochures with them. And because they lack any creativity or any ability to think beyond that four-color glossy brochure, they think that they have to have that in their hand along with a business card to leave with a prospect. It's simply not the case. Brochures and literature end up in the trash, period. I've seen it personally. You know that. Intuitively, you know that. Even if they do business with you, it still ends up in the trash. It's a sad situation, but that's an expensive and a lot of money being thrown away. Secondly, and this is what we've noticed especially like in the last 5 years, is that printed material, those brochures and that literature, tends to paint you and your company as being somewhat stuck in the past, somewhat stuck in the way back years ago in 2010 or 2005 or 2000. Yeah, that you say, geez, that doesn't seem like that long ago. But yes, that is a long time ago as it relates to marketing strategies, marketing efforts, and printed material. The fact is, printed material screams old-fashioned. It screams stuck in the past. It screams irrelevant. Why, you ask? I'm glad you asked that question, because literature is all about you and your company. The literature is about fire, water, smoke, and mold. It's about content. It's about duct cleaning. It's about trauma scene cleanup. It's about remodeling and repair and reconstruction. It's about asbestos. It's about lead. It's about crystalline silica. It simply screams me, 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 me. And the fact of the matter is, your prospects, your clients, your customers don't care about you. They don't want to know details about you, not because they're not interested, because they can look that up on the internet. They can look you up. They can look your company up. They can go to the BBB and see what kind of a rating your company has. They can look on Yelp. They can look on Google reviews. They can see whether you're good, bad, or indifferent. They can see if 5 people have said you're great and 30 people have said you're horrible. And I've read reviews where somebody wrote, run, run, run from this company. So they can find out anything they want to know about your company. And the literature does not help in that situation. All it does is it becomes repetitive. What helps is when you speak to them, to their pain, to their issues. And one of the perfect ways to speak their language and talk about things that matter to them is to deliver to them, hand them a Maven article. On the CREST library, as a CREST member, you have access to Maven articles. There are hundreds and hundreds of them in the library on all kinds of topics, from churches and general commercial to healthcare to hospitality, insurance agents, nursing homes, plumbers, property management, schools, colleges, universities. There are topics with many, many different Maven articles under each of those headings. That's the kind of thing that is really well received in place of your old traditional 10, 15, 20-year-old literature idea. So please remember, literature and brochures that are all about you and your company have become irrelevant. And they're very difficult to share with decision makers. And the bottom line to brochures and literature is this: literature and that marketing collateral undersells you, and it undersells your company. You put all that effort into calling on a client, and then you undersell by letting your brochure do all the work. That's a crime. That's terrible. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Dick. We're going to wrap up with this one. Can CREST help me with my daily processes? Got this question, as a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, and we have already taken steps to assist our member with their processes. The short and long answer is yes, we can help you with your processes, whether it's a simple tweak to something that's going on, or whether it's an entire overhaul starting from scratch. You might feel like things just aren't feeling good. There's no rhythm to what's happening from the time you get the call to when you get the check. And that's, to me, that's where the process starts. The process starts when you get the call. It obviously starts before with the marketing, but let's just talk about your production process. Your production process starts when you get the call and ends when you get the check. Everything between those two steps has to have a part, and it has to have a responsible party. A lot of us operate where a lot of us wear a lot of hats. A lot of our team members wear a lot of hats. And sometimes that's a really good thing because we stay lean and mean and we're able to operate on a lower overall budget so we can make some good money without having to do 30 or 40 jobs a month. The risk we run, though, is when we all wear a lot of hats, the responsibility matrix, those boxes and circles that you see, they should be filled with a task, and they should be filled with a primary person responsible for fulfilling that task. Many times we don't do that. We just say, all right, whoever's available is going to do that. For instance, we need to bring equipment to the job. All right, I'll throw stuff in the truck. It should be the responsibility of the crew leader who's heading out there to make sure that truck is fully staffed with equipment, supplies, and tools so that they can do whatever job they show up to. That's a no-brainer, but that's all part of a process that goes back to what happens when they come back at 5 o'clock at night. Are they fixing that truck and getting all the dirty stuff out and putting new stuff back in? There's an expression in our industry, fire engine ready. You want to have your trucks, before your guys go home at the end of the day, you want to make sure the trucks are fire engine ready. So if you did get a call at midnight, your guys don't have to spend an hour getting ready and making sure the truck's perfect then. They're going to make sure the truck is perfect before they go home for the night. This way, even if nothing happens overnight, at 8 o'clock in the morning when they come in, they get their assignments, they figure out what they have to do, and they're ready to roll. Those are processes. Everything in your business should be a process. How you go about responding, how you even go about taking the call should be a process. Many of us use CRMs that lay out the processes for us with our help. Of course, we have to tell the CRM what to do. And that's where we get into the concept of garbage in, garbage out. I'm very familiar with Dash, one of the bigger programs that our clients use and that many restoration companies are using. Many of them have similar steps, though. You have to add what's called compliance tasks. Well, those are process steps. Who gets the work authorization signed? Who makes sure we have other kinds of paperwork? Who's doing the sketching and the scoping? Who's laying out what to do? Who's doing the initial readings for moisture? Who's determining what we have to do in terms of flood cuts or extractions? All of those steps should be in your processes, and somebody should be there tasked with making sure that's done. You can't assign it to two people. Remember, if there's two bosses, there's none. And if there's two people responsible, there are no people responsible. So let's work really hard on looking at where we are as a company. Is it just a couple of tweaks? You feel like things are going really well, but every once in a while you have a little something that comes up? Perfect. Give us a call. The one thing that Dick and I have always said about the CREST Network is we're not here to tell you to do things our way. We're really here to help you do things your way. So the process that your company has is always going to be different than the process that anybody else at the CREST network has. Maybe the similarities are in the structure of how they get decided, but if you're a company that has 40 employees, your people and your steps are going to be far different than somebody who's got 5 employees. That's just a fact. We're not going to force you to do things the same way because you can't. You might have one person wearing a lot of different hats, but we're still going to make sure that each step of the process is assigned to somebody. That's a really important thing. You can do it yourselves as well. You might just need a fresh set of eyes to look at it. Please give us a call. That's why we're here. That's why your members of the network have access to Dick and myself for these kinds of things. We really enjoy this as part of what we can do to make what you're doing even better. These are those small tweaks we talk about that over the course of a day or two don't mean a lot to you, but over the course of a year, more than pay for your entire year's membership in the CREST network. So those are things we want to encourage you to reach out to us for. If it's something with your marketing steps, please talk to Dick. There's definitely ways that we can help you out. Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. Thank all of you for watching. Just a reminder, several of you we will see next week in Atlanta for the Restoration Marketing Specialist course. Get ready, buckle in. It's going to be an intense 3 days. And for others, we'll see you in Indianapolis in August. And that'll be both the Restoration Marketing Specialist course and the combo. It'll be a combo class with the Commercial Marketing Specialist certification. And those two will be combined in a 5-day class. So we'll see you all either next week or in a couple months. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.